What would you do if the first time you met a woman, she was stealing from you just to keep her children alive? The morning sun rose slow over the Kansas Territory in 1872, painting long lines of gold across Luke Zachary's ranch. The yard was quiet, the cottonwoods whispering in the soft wind, and the chickens clucked lazily in their coop. Luke moved with steady steps, his rifle resting easy in one hand as he checked the path between the hen house and the barn. He expected nothing more than a broken fence post or a loose board. But then he saw her. A girl crouched low by the chicken coop, her hands cupped around fresh eggs like they were the last treasure on earth. Her stockings were torn, her dress muddy at the hem, and her dark hair hung in tangled strands around a face that carried more years than her age allowed. She looked young, maybe 20, but worn down by miles and sorrow. Luke kept his voice calm, steady as a man used to danger. "You planning to bake a pie or just starving?" She froze. Her shoulders twitched like she was about to run, but she didn't. Slowly she stood, hands still holding the stolen eggs. Her boots were cracked down the seams and her lips were dry. She swallowed once before speaking. "I ain't here to rob you," she said. Her voice was soft and tired. Luke tilted his head. "Well, you are holding my eggs." She glanced down, then back up, lifting her chin. "I was going to leave a rabbit. I got one in my bag." Luke nodded toward the cloth satchel hanging off her shoulder. He could see the bulge of something small inside it. He could also see the tremble in her hands. "You got kids?" he asked. Her jaw tightened. "Two, a boy and girl. Left them in a lean-to about a mile west." That told him everything. She wasn't a thief by nature. She was a mother trying to keep her children breathing. "You got a name?" he asked. "Ree Carver." "Well, Ree," he said, leaning his rifle against the coop, "you want to work or wear white?" She blinked, confused. "What?" "I got a ranch that needs a cook," he said simply. "Someone to help with chores. That's work. Or if you want something steadier, there's a preacher who rides out from town every couple weeks. I could marry you." Her mouth parted in shock. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "You didn't run, and you didn't lie." Ree looked away, her eyes shining in the morning light. "I just needed to feed my kids." Luke nodded once. "Then go get them. You all can stay in the bunkhouse until we figure things out." She stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, waiting for the trap. But Luke didn't move. "You serious?" she whispered. "I don't joke much before breakfast." A breath escaped her like she had been holding it for days. "All right. I'll get them." Luke watched her hurry across the yard, disappearing into the trees. When she was gone, he bent to collect the eggs she had dropped and carried them inside. The chickens clucked behind him like they approved. An hour later, he heard footsteps and stepped onto the porch. Ree came back through the cottonwoods with two children trailing behind her. The girl looked 6, with big, brown eyes and a sunburned nose. The boy was 4, holding a ragged toy horse and clinging to his sister's hand. "This is B," Ree said softly, touching the girl's shoulder. "And this is Boone." Luke nodded. "Welcome." The children looked to their mother, unsure. She gave them a small nod, and they stepped forward. Luke led them to the bunkhouse beside the barn. It was small but clean, with a single bed, a stove, and quilts he kept for winter. "You'll have to share the bed," he said, "but it's dry and warm." Ree looked around, her shoulders lowering as if the weight of miles eased just a little. "Thank you." "Come by the main house when you're ready," Luke said. "I'll show you the kitchen." She hesitated at the doorway. "You really meant what you said?" "About the work. And the other thing." Luke met her eyes. "I don't say things I don't mean." She studied him a long moment. "Then I choose work." Luke nodded. "All right, let's start with lunch." Quote, "That afternoon, Ree stood in his kitchen with her sleeves rolled up and her hair tied back clean. She moved like someone who had cooked for years, someone who knew when to stir and when to leave a pot alone. The children ate biscuits on the porch, watching the chickens with quiet wonder. "You from around here?" Luke asked, leaning on the doorframe. "No, Missouri. My husband died 2 winters ago. Nothing left for us there." "You got people?" he asked. "Not any I'd want to see again." They fell into a soft quiet, the kind that came from shared loss. Luke watched her knead dough, her hands quick and sure. "You cook like someone who fed a big family," he said. "6 brothers. I was the oldest." He smiled slightly. "That explains the biscuits." That night, after the children were asleep, Ree stood outside the bunkhouse. Luke approached with a blanket in hand. "Gets cold out here," he said. She took it, their fingers brushing. "Thank you." "You did good today," he said. She looked up at him, her eyes soft but tired. "I was scared when you caught me." "I know." Quote, "I thought you'd shoot." "I thought about it," he said straight-faced. She laughed, surprised. Then her smile faded into something gentler. "You're different than I thought." Luke looked out at the dark fields. "I lost people, too. Everyone's trying to hold on to something." For the first time since her husband died, the fear in her eyes eased. "Good night, Luke," she whispered. "Good night, Ree." She watched him walk away, the stars bright above him. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, something in her life might finally stay. Ree woke before the rooster, her feet touching the cold floorboards of the bunkhouse while the sky was still dark. Boone slept curled against Bee, his small hand pressed to her ribs like he was guarding her even in dreams. Ree pulled the quilt tighter over them and stepped outside, the morning air sharp with frost. She walked across the yard with her apron folded neatly under her arm. The light hadn't crested the ridge yet, but the quiet felt different today. Safe, almost, like the land was giving her a moment to breathe. Luke was already in the barn, brushing down the gray gelding with long, sure strokes. He didn't turn when she approached. "There's coffee on the stove," he said. "You can start with the cornmeal." "I can sew too," she said, steady. He paused and looked over his shoulder. "You offering for the kitchen or something else?" Quote, "For what needs doing," she said. He nodded once. "There's a tear in the work shirts in the storeroom." Second peg. By sunrise, Ree had 2 loaves rising on the stove, the children fed and dressed, and a neat pile of mended linens stacked near the wood bin. She moved through the work like someone who remembered what it felt like to belong somewhere. Bee helped with quiet focus, wiping the table and setting spoons with care. Boone played in the dirt with small stones, humming under his breath. Luke worked the east fence until midday. When he came inside, dust clung to his collar and there was a limp in his left stride. "Horse step wrong?" Ree asked as he washed at the basin. "Rusty post gave out." "Nothing broken." Quote, she handed him a plate of warm cornbread and beans. This time, she sat across from him without waiting for permission. The children napped in the shade near the porch, Boone using Bee's skirt as a pillow. "You been around livestock before?" Luke asked. "Some. My father raised mules." "Think you can drive a team?" "I can learn fast." "I'll need to haul lumber from town Friday." She traced the grain in the tabletop. "You ever been married before?" Luke didn't answer right away. "No, thought about it once." "She left for Colorado." "Why didn't you go after her?" "She wanted city streets," he said. "I got dirt in my boots." Ree nodded. "My husband was a carpenter. Quiet man. Died slow." Luke didn't press. He let her talk if she wanted, let her be silent if she preferred. It was a kind of respect she hadn't known in years. "You're strong," he said. "I'm still here, that's all." They shared the rest of the meal in quiet that wasn't empty. Luke's gaze drifted to her hands, scarred, capable. He saw strength in the way she sat, in how she talked, in how she didn't flinch from hard things. As the sun dipped low and turned the hills gold, Luke saddled the gelding and walked past the kitchen. "I'm checking the trap line," he said. Back before dark. "You want me to keep supper warm?" He hesitated, adjusting the strap on the saddlebag. "You could come with me." She blinked. "And the children?" "They'll be safe. I left my dog with them." Her knife clicked once against the cutting board. Then she wiped her hands, tied her hair tighter, and followed him out. They rode in silence at first, the trail dipping through dry grass and cool evening shadows. A hawk circled overhead, its cry sharp in the quiet air. "You always this quiet?" she asked finally. "Not much to say when a man lives alone." She looked at him. "You don't live alone anymore." His fingers tightened on the reins, but he didn't look away. They reached the traps just before dusk. Luke knelt to lift a fat rabbit free, his movements steady. Ree crouched beside him, her breath visible in the cooling air. "You ever think about leaving all this behind?" she asked. "Sometimes. But I built this place with my hands. It's not much, but it's mine." She studied him, seeing something she hadn't let herself look at before. "I don't want charity," she said. "Then don't take it," he said. "Take a place." He handed her the rabbit. She took it without another word. They rode back under a sky streaked pink and gold. The bunkhouse windows glowed warm as they approached. Bee had set the table without being told. Boone slept under a quilt, curled like a small fox. The dog wagged its tail once, then dropped its head back onto its paws. Ree stepped inside and whispered to Luke, "You meant it about marrying." "I did." She nodded slowly. "Not yet, but I'm thinking on it." Luke tipped his hat. "Take all the time you need. I'll still be here." For the first time in months, that felt like a promise she could trust. The week rolled on. The smell of dry leaves and early frost drifted through the cottonwoods. Luke hitched the buckboard for town, and Ree climbed beside him, her children safe with a neighbor. The road stretched rough and rutted, but the silence between them was different now. Comfortable. Real. At the store, she picked a bolt of faded blue cloth and a spool of thread. "You don't ask for much," Luke said as he carried their supplies. "I've learned not to. You don't need to live like the ground's about to vanish under you." She looked at him, steady. "You can't build on air." "I'm not asking you to. I won't vanish." Her heart thumped once, hard. On the way home, thick clouds rolled in. The horses moved faster, sensing weather. When they reached the ranch, the bunkhouse lamp was glowing. Bee rocked Boone gently, both children safe and warm. That night, Ree cut the blue cloth by lantern light. Her stitches were strong and even. Boone slept beside her. Bee read from a worn book Luke had lent her. A soft knock came at the door. Luke stood there holding a tin cup of warm cider. "You ever think about what comes after all this?" he asked. Ree looked at her children, then at him. "I do now." "I want something steady," Luke said. "Someone beside me who knows how to fight through storms." She stepped closer, the lantern light soft on her face. "Ask me again when the snow comes." "I will," he said. She touched his sleeve gently. "Thank you for the cloth. You'll make something good out of it." She watched him walk away, and for the first time she felt the world settling under her feet instead of shaking. The first frost came overnight, silver and thin across the grass. The pump handle was stiff with ice, and the air held the sharp bite of coming winter. Ree wrapped Boone's coat around his shoulders and tucked the quilt tighter over Bee before slipping outside. The morning sky was pale and quiet. Her breath rose like smoke. A kettle was already heating in the main house. Luke stood by the woodpile, splitting logs by lantern glow. The rhythm of the axe was slow and steady, like a heartbeat against the cold. "You're up early," he said, setting the axe aside. "I couldn't sleep." He handed her a thick glove. "Handle's slick today." They worked together without speaking for a while, their breath hanging in the crisp air. She braced each log while he split it, and the sound echoed across the yard. The sun lifted above the trees in a quiet gold wash. "I used to dream of places with no winter," she said. "You ever think of going south?" he asked. "I did once," she said, brushing wood chips from her skirt. "But I'm done chasing things I've never seen." Luke studied her, the early light catching the edge of her jaw. "You talk like everything you say is nailed down." "I've had enough looseness in my life," she said simply. They brought the split logs inside together. Ree stirred the fire while Luke washed up. There was a calm between them now, something steady and warm like the stove's heat. After breakfast, Luke pulled on his coat. "I'll be down by the lower pasture," he said. "Cattle scattered after that wind last night." Ree nodded. "I'll walk the creek. Get the last herbs before the ground locks." He paused at the door. "Take the rifle. Coyotes get hungry when the snows come. Quote, I will. She left the children with a neighbor, trading a jar of preserves for a few hours of quiet hands. Folks had learned not to ask too much about her past. Ree walked toward the creek, satchel swinging gently at her side. The grass crackled under her boots as she gathered dried herbs, her fingers stinging from the cold. The world felt big, but no longer dangerous. Just wide. Just alive. She didn't hear the horse until it was close. She turned, hand on the rifle, but it was Luke. His face was sharp with worry. Found a calf caught in the fence, he said. I freed it, but the wire's a mess. I can help. He raised a brow. You know fence wire? I know how to hold it while someone else twists. They rode to the slope where the calf had struggled. The wire curled like a metal snake, broken from the post. Luke anchored it while Ree held the slack. Her palms bled from 2 barbs, but she didn't flinch. I wouldn't have expected this, Luke said quietly, from the girl I found stealing eggs. I wouldn't have expected a man to offer me a choice, she said. He twisted the wire tight and stood. I meant what I said that day. I know, she said. That's why I'm still here. They walked back slowly, the horses trailing behind. The sun dipped low, turning the hills to amber. When they reached the yard, Ree paused by the porch. I've been thinking, she said. Luke stopped, reins hanging loose in his hand. You asked me if I wanted to work or wear white, she said. Her voice didn't shake. I chose work because it was what I knew, but that doesn't mean I didn't think about the other. He stepped closer. You thinking about it now? She nodded once. If it's still an offer. Luke looked at her in that long, unreadable way of his. I've got no ring, he said, and no fancy ceremony. I don't need fancy, she said. I just need something that won't slip from under me. He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather cord, worn smooth with years. My mother braided this for my father before she died. He gave it to me when I left home. Ree took it gently, her fingers brushing his. It's enough, quote. Luke wrapped it around her wrist, tying it with quiet care. Then you're mine, he said, if you want it. I do, she whispered. The last light caught her face, warm and soft. And for the first time since Missouri, she let herself smile without fear. The preacher rode out the next morning, just as the first snow began to fall. The ceremony was small. No lace, no crowd. Just Bee, with a sprig of wintergreen in her hair, and Boone holding Luke's pant leg. Ree wore her mother's dress, faded sage green with mended seams. Her hands didn't tremble. When the preacher asked if she took Luke freely, she said yes, clear and sure. Luke answered the same, steady as the land he worked. Afterward, the preacher accepted a sack of flour and a jar of honey for his trouble and rode back toward town. The house fell quiet again, the fire warm, the children fed, and the snow drifting soft outside the window. That night, Luke walked Ree outside, lantern in hand. I built this place hoping someone might want to stay, he said. I never thought I would stay again, she whispered. But you do, quote. She nodded. I do. He drew her close with the quiet certainty of a man who had waited long enough to know what he held. Inside the house, the warmth settled deep. That night they lay together in the main house bed, his hand finding hers beneath the quilt. You didn't forget how to be close, he murmured. You just never had someone who stayed. I have that now, she said softly. By spring, the land had thawed. Bee helped in the garden. Boone followed Luke everywhere. Replanted herbs by the porch and laughed without fear. The ranch grew full of small joys. One evening, as the sky turned the color of sweet tea, Ree watched Luke mend a gate hinge. She walked barefoot across the yard and wrapped her arms around him. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For teaching me that staying can be safe. He kissed her temple. You taught me that too. Through many winters after, folks in town spoke of the Zacharys, quiet people with open doors, warm meals, and steady hearts. Every time snow fell thick and silent. Ree would wrap that braided leather band around her wrist, slip her hand into Luke's, and look out across the land they'd built together, not from fear, but from love that finally stayed.